All right, welcome everybody. You're here with Tom, and George just disappeared, but he is here, so he'll say hello in a second when he comes back. Hello, George.
I had to shut the screen door. A fly came in.
No good. No good.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello. Today was
good week, Tom. No bad week.
You know what? It was a good week, but I just have a feeling a lot of people are going to feel like it was a bad week. So we're going to have to dissect this and talk about it. This wasn't the best day. Some of the price action I didn't like with the Bitcoin miners, but I'm still right where I've been. I am bullish in the midterm and in the long term, and we're going to talk about what that means, because I know these are typically the most foolish words you can say, but this time it's different. And I'm going to stand by that, and I'm going to explain what I mean. So we're going to go through what's going on, why it really is different. And we've got a lot of monthly operational reports. We've got a lot of quarterly reports. So we have like a blizzard of information. So before we do any of that, we have 13 likes. So if you guys could do us a favor and smash the like button, the thumbs up button, that would be appreciated. It helps the stream out a lot. And then we'll get going. So you're looking at the Bitcoin 15-minute. So you can see the gold line here is where we were at the close yesterday. So we were at around 117,525 bucks yesterday when the U.S. equity markets closed. That's where Bitcoin was. Now, if we go back to last week, last Friday, so last time we had a public live stream, Bitcoin was at $113,250. We're at $116,483. So to your point, George, you got to call this a good week. I mean,
I just, you know, my whole thing is this: when it hasn't popped in a week, I'm like, they got us again. They got us again. And they're just good at doing it, you know?
Well, I bought twice this week, and more than I should have, but I'm that confident. So we'll talk about what I bought and what I got and all that kind of stuff too. Not financial advice, of course. You guys got to do you. But I'll tell you how I saw it. And we have a new champion in the month of July for the first time in a couple of years. Marathon did not mine the most Bitcoin in the month. So we'll talk about and go through everybody that's reported. The list is getting shorter and shorter. And I'm going to tell you, I think at this point, there's really only 7 companies left that can really legitimately claim to be Bitcoin miners. There are other companies that participate in Bitcoin mining, and maybe 3 or 4 more that you could say are at the bottom of that list. But the list is getting smaller and smaller, and 2 companies made a big play in July to add a lot of exahash. Their mining went way up, so we're seeing some really interesting stuff this year. Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for being a longtime member, and thank you for the super chat.
Sour.
Cleanspark isn't even operational profitable with Bitcoin near highs. Big disappointment. Besides IREN, somehow the miners find a way to lose money. Frustrating. I am going to look at the Cleanspark income statement, because I think it's a little bit misleading. First of all, they were profitable. I know you're stripping away the gain that they got from the value that their Bitcoin increased, but that gain is real. They could go cash that in right now. So, and they earned that. They had to do a lot of dilution, a lot of growth, a lot of hodling to get those coins. So the fact that they made a bet and it's paying off. So I don't think it's fair to say they're not profitable. And there's a couple other misleading things in there. The other thing is, when we look at these depreciation numbers on all these income statements, I would just caution everybody, for tax purposes, there are massive accelerated methods of depreciation. And companies take those because it's to their benefit. So your depreciation is front loaded big time, and it's a total non-cash cost. So, if let's say you broke even, but you had $100 million of depreciation, that means you were positive cash flow $100 million. So I think you got to look at take a closer look at all is not as it seems, I guess is what I would say. These are difficult to read, and obviously they go along with the volatility of Bitcoin. But I think Cleanspark, I thought that was a really good report. And I think they're set up, to keep improving. And as Bitcoin keeps going up, and I think if you look at their valuation, we're going to look at what they made versus what they're valued. And there's 2 or 3 companies where you just can't make sense out of it. You can't find another company in the whole stock market that's trading at valuations that are that bad. Companies that have well-established long-term lines of revenue, companies that are profitable. And yet they're getting no credit at all. But I do think we've already seen in the last 100 days a shift. And, this past couple of weeks, there's a breather. So we're going to get those. We're going to get volatility. We're going to get some sideways activity. But I think we're consolidating for the next big move up for the Bitcoin miners. Let's see if you guys agree or disagree. Also, good job. George has got a poll up. And do you think
Cleanspark was good or not? Let's, throw it out there.
Yeah, let's see what
you decide. Memberships make it fun, but everybody to watch, you can enjoy along and laugh and giggle.
We had some good conversations on Tuesday, and some stuff played out just exactly like we talked about. So I felt really good about it. So we will look at Cleanspark's financial statements. We'll take a brief look back at Marathon and Riot because to me, those 3 are kind of comparable. We don't have IREN's financial statements yet, but we have a lot of information from them. And so their financial statements are going to be good. They had a really good week, their stock. And I think it mainly had to do with the fact of what I alluded to in the title of today's stream, which is there's a new champion. IREN mined the most Bitcoin out of any Bitcoin miner in the month of July. So that's the first time that hasn't been Marathon in years. And Cleanspark's had a couple of shots at it. They've come very close. They came very close again this month, but they did not pass them. But guess what? IREN did. And one of our members kind of did the math, on the back of a napkin type math and came up and said, I think they mined 718 Bitcoin, and it came out at 728. So congratulations to, I think that was Old Jock, who pretty much nailed it. So Cleanspark is, at least for this month. Now, I don't think that's sustainable, but I do think instead of Marathon winning every single month due to curtailment, and due to the fact that there's some companies gearing up, we're seeing little opportunities here for things to be closer than they used to be by a lot. So we'll see what Marathon's response is to that. I think Marathon got beat up and they're undervalued. I think Riot got beat up and they're undervalued. I think Cleanspark got destroyed on what I really thought, I got done reading that report and I'm like, and the initial knee-jerk reaction last night after hours, even after the conference call was over, Cleanspark was up. It was green. And it looked like people were excited about it. And then today came the big sell-off. And I just feel like a lot of times that is a big buying opportunity. That is the head fake, before the move. And we've seen it over and over. So I will say I bought Cleanspark today. I bought some a couple of days ago and I bought some more today under $10. So, I mean, We'll see. Maybe, I may be right and I may be wrong, but CleanSpark under $10 to me is absolutely absurd. Just their Bitcoin, if you take how much that's worth, I mean, a lot of these companies, Marathon's trading at 1x its Bitcoin that it holds, which means the rest of its entire business is being valued at 0. It just doesn't make sense.
I got one, Tom. I'm going to go out and limb, and this is what I believe. And this is going to be a crazy one, and I can't even believe I'm going to go this far out on the limb, but I'm going.
Let's do it.
Between now and 7/31/26, I think the Bitcoin miners, the true, AI and Bitcoin miners, will set new all-time highs from a year. So give me a year, and that's what I'm saying.
Give you a year, and they're going to what?
To set new all-time highs in stock price.
New all-time highs within a year.
I think Marathon will do it. I think Riot will do it. I think CleanSpark will do it. I think even Bitfarms will do it. I don't know Bitfarms, probably not. But I think we're on a launching point, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I really feel that they just cannot keep it down, keep it a secret much longer.
I agree.
When that day is, I don't know.
I think the fact that the Bitcoin miners are still suppressed at this level speaks more to the fact that we're a lot earlier in this bull run than we think we are. That's my opinion. And we'll go through why I think this is going to be a much longer bull run. So traditionally, these have been very similar. And there's been a lot of patterns that have repeated after the halving. And so traditionally, somewhere in October or November, we would have our blow off top and then crash after that. Well, I do not believe that's going to happen. I think that our all-time high will be somewhere deep into 2026. So I think we could have a year left on this run, maybe more. And I don't think there's going to be a giant crypto winner. I do think there'll be a bear market. Every market goes through bull and bear cycles. So, the bigger the run up, the more chance there's going to be some kind of pullback. But, I'll shut it down. If there's a full-blown crypto winner this time, I don't know what I'll do. I'll lose a lot of money for starters. I can't see it. The only way that could happen is if we get if we hit some insane price target, like $350,000 or $400,000, that would leave enough room to have some kind of pullback like that. But I have an article today. It's probably the 10th one I've read. Bitcoin volatility continues to go down. This is acting more and more like a stable asset and a store of value. And as volatility's gone down, Bitcoin price has gone up. That has not happened since the inception of Bitcoin. So these are different times. And I think we're just at the beginning of them. Oh, we gotta end this. Oh, it was 50-50. Do you think CleanSpark was good? I mean, here we go again. Very split decision. You can put in the comments what you liked about it or didn't like about it. I look at that company and they're operating extremely well, in my opinion. Their balance sheet is very strong and their market cap is very low. By the way, they're now almost a year, right? A couple months short of a year into not issuing any at the market offerings. So, the number one concern that everybody used to have was, all these companies, all they do is have at the market offerings and they dilute. They've done zero dilution in over 10 months. So they're in a different phase. That this is a much bigger, multiples bigger, much more mature company. It's a very healthy company. The balance sheet is outstanding. The income statement is good. And it, as long as Bitcoin does well, obviously, if they're all in, they are the last pure play Bitcoin miner. So they're all in on Bitcoin, and they're doing no high performance computing or AI. So, if Bitcoin dumps, then I'll understand that CleanSpark has a bad run from a stock standpoint. But I think they got a long, long way to go just to catch up. All of these companies, let me put it in perspective. If you do a cost per coin calculation, if you look at the financial statements, all of them, even the ones that we perceive as not very efficient, most of the cost, direct costs per coin. So I'm not talking about non-cash costs like depreciation. I'm not talking about overhead. And I understand you got to take your gross profit and you got to pay all your overhead with it. So, the gross profit is not the end of the story, but the direct cost is basically nobody's over $55,000. So at Bitcoin, $115,000, even if you're one of the least efficient Bitcoin miners out there, you're making 60 grand a Bitcoin. I mean, that was the peak of the last cycle.
George. Hey, George.
Right? I mean, you can't say that's a company that doesn't have a good business model. Now, there are a few bloated income statements where companies have too much overhead, in my opinion. And, I don't like that, but CleanSpark's not one of those companies. There's 3 or 4 companies that are anywhere from good to great at managing their overhead, and CleanSpark is good at managing their overhead. And I think you're going to see Hive is great at managing their overhead, and we're not going to get their financials for a little while. And IREN is as well. Now they have no Bitcoin, so they're going to get no big markup. They get 0 markup. However, their cost per coin is the lowest out of, as far as I can tell from the information we're getting. And they haven't put out their financial statements yet, but every month they report their cost per coin, and they're talking about $27,000. So everybody else is in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. There's 1 or 2 that are doing a little better than that. So, IREN, I think, is going to keep running just on, profitability. And obviously the hope of AI, because they have a mass, they've gone all in on both, if that's possible. They just ramped up to 50 exahash of Bitcoin mining. They just mined more Bitcoin last month than any other publicly traded Bitcoin miner in the world. And their main focus right now is on high performance computing and AI. So that's where they're spending all their money. So there's reason to be excited about IREN. And if they can get those contracts, then, I think there's good things ahead. Should we end this poll? Oh, yes has pulled into the lead in a big way. If you just joined us, or if you have not done so, if you could please smash the like button. We're at 35 likes. We're going for 100 likes while we're live. We did fail at that 2 times in a row a couple of months ago, and never before and never since. So help us if you'd be so kind. Oh, yes, I'm going to leave the poll going. Yes, it's starting to pull ahead a little bit, but it's very, very close. And thank you, everybody. That's what we got, a lot of votes going in. So thank you very much. So if we look at the big board today, I mean, the worst performer was CleanSpark, down 6%. We actually had 2 that were in the green, one of which, quite honestly, just absolutely mystifies me. Core Scientific was in the green, and something else is going on there altogether, which we'll talk about. So they were up 0.42%. Basic plus or minus, they were break even today. Terawulf was up 1.82%. And I'll tell you, when I look at their financial statements, I don't see good things there. I'm I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what their plan. Well, I know what their plan is, but it's not happening yet. And they are absolutely all in on AI. They've abandoned ship. It's here's how much. Let's see. Are they the ones? I believe they are. Oh, no, actually, that was Hut 8. So who I'm thinking of, what I was just going to say, I had to think for a minute. Hut 8 put their quarterly report out. They didn't even report in their quarterly report how many Bitcoin they mined. So not only did they stop doing monthly reports, they're just not going to report that number ever again. And that is because we're going to see they've given all their Bitcoin assets to their majority-owned subsidiary, which is spinning off, merging with Griffin, going public. And from that day forward, Hut 8's not going to mine a single Bitcoin ever again. They're out of the Bitcoin mining business. Core Scientific is going to be out of the Bitcoin mining business. BitDigital, BTBT, already announced they sold all their Bitcoin, shut all their machines off, and bought Ethereum with everything they had, plus they borrowed some money. So BitDigital is no longer associated with Bitcoin in any way. So there's 3 companies right there. Core Scientific, by the way, in 2022 and 2023, they mined so much more Bitcoin than anybody else. It wasn't even close. They were double the next closest company. And they went from that to they're really kind of, when I get to the list, you're going to see I've actually taken them kind of half off the list because, you know, they're so far down. They don't report, but they do give us daily updates on Twitter. And if the CoreWeave deal goes through, CoreWeave has no interest, none, in mining Bitcoin. So they haven't added a single machine to their fleet in years. And it gets smaller and smaller every month. They mine less and less Bitcoin every month, and CoreWeave will just shut it off. They'll take that power, those megawatts, and do what they do with them. So I think you're going to see that coming. So that the space is getting smaller and smaller. So I do think those that win, the winners, should win, right? We've said all along, not everybody's going to win. But I think we're starting to see who's emerging. Want to go to that? Let's go to that next. What was the poll we were going to put up? So this is let's call this poll is, I'm going to call it even. People were totally split on the Cleanspark financial statements. So we'll take a look at those and see if you guys change your mind or if you hold the course, but very split on that. I'm just typing up a quick poll. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Type it again. Okay. Simple. Are you bullish on the Bitcoin miners in the month of August? It's now August 8th. Hasn't really been the greatest start to the month. The first week of the month was a train wreck. This week you're going to see was actually not a bad week, and we're going to go look at that next. And so where do we think we're going from here? So let's go look at what happened this week, because it felt, to me, this week felt really bad, but when you look at the numbers, it really wasn't. Bitcoin, you can see, was up about 3% on the week. So obviously, you know, that's good. And then if you look at the Bitcoin miners, here's what the Bitcoin miners did this week. So on a week where Bitcoin was up 3%, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the Bitcoin miners outperformed that. IREN was up 20% this week on a week that Bitcoin was up 3%. IREN is now in first place year to date by so far, it's crazy. And I do think it just went through a pullback and some consolidation, and it's got more room to run. Core Scientific up 14%. That's a tricky one. We're going to talk about that because something's going on there. There's supposed to be a merger, but there's a fly in the ointment, so we're going to talk about it. And then Bitfarms, right, up 7%. That's a good week. Terawulf up 6%. BTDR up 4%. Hive and Riot were still green. Riot was up just about 0%. Marathon was down 1%. HUT was down 2%. CIFR was down 4%, and CleanSpark was down 4%. CIFR had, I think, a shockingly good operational report in the month of July. And CleanSpark, I think, had a great operational report and great financials. I know we just voted pretty much 50-50 as to whether or not those financials were any good. But I believe the market is sandbagging. They're pushing the price of CleanSpark down to get everybody out of it so that they can accumulate and it's going to take off. This is a $20 stock. And that's, to me, that's light. So, I mean, not today it isn't. Today it dipped under $10, which is just bizarre. Someone Gaming said, go IREN, go IREN. Yeah, I mean, IREN has, there's a risk reward in IREN because they've gone all in on high performance computing. And if they don't get some big contracts, it's going to end up being a problem. Having said that, they hedged their bets nicely because before they switched gears, they raced to 50 exahash. They just mined the most Bitcoin out of any Bitcoin miner. So they have infrastructure on the Bitcoin mining side that rivals any company, right? They're a top 3. There's 3 that have separated themselves, and they're one of them. And their cost per coin is the lowest out of any publicly traded company. So, you know, those are good underpinnings for, you know, financial strength. Their balance sheet is good. They haven't put out their new report yet, but it's a strong company. But it is getting priced. It is now the second largest Bitcoin miner by market cap. Only Marathon is bigger. So it's getting priced as if there's big high performance computing contracts coming. So if they don't come, I do think there could be a little bit of a pullback because you're going to see when we get to year to date, you're going to see just how far ahead IREN's lapping the field. It's not even close. Edmund saying Metaplanet should hit some crazy numbers. Preferred sales should start in September. So I'll just quickly go to, I got a little something on. Hello, Edmund, by the way. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so this was earlier in the week. Metaplanet doubles down on Bitcoin. Now, they did not literally double down on Bitcoin, so that is not an accurate statement.
All right.
But as shares slide, they buy another $54 million. I'm going to take a break on this and just address the super chat. 4-year cycle. Thank you very much for being a member and for the super chat. 4-year cycle said, Tom, ETH and Bitcoin treasuries are what miners were in the past. Besides AI and high-performance computing, the mining sector story has become stale and tiresome to investors. I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying, but what I would add to that, retail investors have clearly grown tiresome. They're exhausted after years of these stocks not performing the way that they want to. A couple of big fake outs. So for people that did swing trades on these, there's some people that made a lot of money. But if you've just been buying and holding and dollar cost averaging in, it's been a pretty frustrating run. So I understand what you're saying for your cycle. But what I would say is I still believe that's actually reason to have optimism in the Bitcoin miners, because all of what's going on right now, there is zero retail FOMO on Bitcoin mining stocks, with the possible exception of IREN. Retailers have just left this space, and they're just gone. They will be back. They'll be back when it's too late, right? You guys are here now. They're going to come back when it's too late, and they're going to buy at the top, and that's how it always happens. So I don't think you're wrong about what you're saying, but I also would be careful. These companies that are treasuring Ethereum and Bitcoin, I do think have a much, much bigger risk, because most of those companies have no real actual underlying business. For instance, you know, the poster child for that, by far the biggest holder of cryptocurrency in the world, is MicroStrategy, and they have over 600,000 Bitcoin. Their underlying business, right? Their underlying business is immaterial. It doesn't affect their stock price in any way, shape, or form. They are just strictly a proxy on Bitcoin at this point. And they are trading at a multiple of what Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin that they have. So my only fear is, we've seen this in the past with the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Now, they're not apples to apples. So, you know, I'm not saying this is inevitable, but the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust went from having a giant premium like MicroStrategy does right now to having, at the bottom, they had a 49% discount to the fair market value of the Bitcoin they held. So they were worth half the Bitcoin they held. So if you were holding them, it was a disaster. And I don't want to take the risk that that's what's going to happen next, even if it's market manipulation or whatever you want to call it. Those companies have a lot more downside, whereas the Bitcoin mining companies have a lot more upside. Like I said, Marathon is trading. I think now the Marathon is actually trading at less than the value of its Bitcoin, which means the public is valuing that company at less than zero, which makes no sense. Sourmelon Gaming can't wait to see Bitfarms pump from $1.25 to $1.50 when retail comes in. I think everyone's going to be surprised. Bitfarms has gone a little bit radio silent. They've had to do a massive, massive shift in their business plan, but their stock has recovered hugely, and I think they're going to make it, and I think they're going to have a nice run. I know George kind of hedged his bets. He said everything's going to hit a new all-time high. Well, maybe not Bitfarms, and I understand why, because the narrative over there is a bit of a nightmare. But I think
wasn't there all-time high $9?
Yeah, I think $9.36.
Well, I pulled that one out of my butt. But yeah, I don't see that getting there.
It's hard to imagine them getting back to $9. But yeah. What I would say, let me see if I have Bitfarms open.
I remember owing them at $7. Thank God I was swing trading back then.
Here's what I would say. They were at $2.76 in November of 2024. They're a better company now than they were then. So, and they're trading at $1.24. So that's more than a double just to get back to where they were, 10 months ago. I don't think you can say that's unrealistic. And if you look at their balance sheet, this is a healthy company. And they do mine a lot of Bitcoin. They're not reporting it anymore. They're switching gears like a lot of these companies are. They're focusing on high performance computing. They hired a partner to build the infrastructure out who has contacts with all of the major hyperscalers. So they're hoping through that relationship to get some contracts. Time will tell if that happens. But one contract, you could see Bitfarms double. I don't like the fact that they're not reporting their Bitcoin on a monthly basis. If they don't report the amount of Bitcoin that they mined in their quarterly report, I will be deeply disturbed. So I would say you should expect to see that number in their quarterly report like Terawulf did. But Terawulf's number was, they mined less than 500 Bitcoin in the quarter. And they're really not growing their Bitcoin mining anymore. They're stopped at 12 and they have no plans for growth. So Terawulf's a company that, they are truly all in on high performance computing. And we'll see how it goes. Let's see if I have their... Cleanspark, that's Terawulf. Okay. So from a consolidated balance sheet standpoint, if you take a look at this company, this is the least strong balance sheet, I think, out of all the Bitcoin miners. Current assets, $99 million. Current liabilities, $151 million. Their current ratio is negative. And that's not because some other companies have chosen to say, listen, even though Bitcoin's 100% liquid, we intend to hold it for a long term, so we're putting it in long-term assets. No, they don't have any Bitcoin. Digital currency, zero. So this is the real deal. They're upside down on their current ratio, which is not good at all. So I don't like their balance sheet. Their income statement, $47 million of revenue. They're way behind their competition. They're way behind Bitfarms. Right? Bitfarms is going to have a lot more revenue than that. And they lost money. Right? People were 50-50. Did Cleanspark have a good quarter? Cleanspark made $250 million. Terawulf lost $18 million. So I just don't understand how the market looks at those two things in such a different way. These numbers are real. So for me personally, for some of you, I'm sure Terawulf's your favorite company out there. And listen, if they go get the next multi-billion-dollar high-performance computing contract, then they're going to win. If they don't, this business model, this doesn't work.
You want to hear something disturbing?
Absolutely.
If you got to think about it. The top 7 companies spent $100 billion this past quarter on AI database centers. So people should have gotten contracts.
Yeah, they need to. You're 100% right, George. We called this out months ago. Putting out press releases that you're growing your infrastructure in 2024. That was making these stocks run like the wind. 2025, nobody cares if you're adding to your infrastructure. They want to see contracts. They want to see revenue that's going to lead to profitability. And we're really not seeing very much of that at all so far. Now, it's a long cycle. Building out this infrastructure, getting a contract, getting it up and running, bringing the revenue in. There's a long cycle. So I understand it takes time, but I am not encouraged at all. So I would hope that a lot of these companies do thrive in this space. It's supposed to be the next big thing. It's taking over the world. NVIDIA's a $4 trillion market cap company because high performance computing is the only thing that matters on earth. But yet here's all these companies knee deep in high performance computing and they can't find a single contract when the narrative out there in the world is we're going to need so much more space that, we're never going to be able to build it out. Well, all of these companies are building it out and they can't get anybody to rent it. So there's two different things going on. We're going to see which one's real. What do you think, George?
I think, okay, so Amazon, I think the hype is a lot bigger than you realize, and I don't think it's going to be good because Amazon just bought an unbelievable place in Fairborn, Georgia. Why wouldn't they go and lease it if they're going to lease? You know what I mean? I just can't imagine.
You just honed in on my biggest fear of all of this. Why would because all these hyperscalers, like you're just talking about, Amazon, all the big players, why would Google go subcontract all this out? It's nothing to them to go build it themselves, and then they own it, and then they're not reliant on some rinky-dink third party that, so that,
I mean, and how big is Google?
Google's like a $2 trillion company.
I mean, so can you imagine? It was funny because I was just watching an article.
And so is Amazon.
Yeah, I know. So why would they? It just doesn't make any sense.
So your point is, why would they go knocking on Terawulf's door?
Right. I can see them maybe buying Terawulf if they have the right assets and the right structure, but I don't believe they do.
And that's what's happening to Core Scientific. Core Scientific did make a big bet. They did get a contract from CoreWeave, and now CoreWeave's buying them. That's the path. You're right. But there's a wrinkle in that path. Let me find it. Just a minute. Bitcoin miner Core Scientific's third largest shareholder opposes the CoreWeave deal. 2C's Capital has come out against Core Scientific's proposed all-stock acquisition by AI cloud provider CoreWeave. So, the market has acted like this is a done deal, and maybe it is. Because, listen, even as their third largest holder, I think they own 5% of the stock. And I don't know what influence they're going to be able to have, but I do think they bring up some points. 2C's is urging the board to seek higher bids. Put it out for bid. They're saying potentially maybe even CoreWeave itself will raise the number if pressed. Now, a part of the problem is it's hard to get a bid from somebody else because their only customer, for all intents and purposes, is CoreWeave. So I don't know that anybody else is going to go buy them, and that's with 100% or 99+% concentration in their customer base. But I don't know. So we'll see. I still think this is probably a done deal. We'll see what happens. But this is a curveball. Their third largest shareholder is going to vote no on this deal.
I don't think this is true, what I'm going to tell you next, but this is what somebody is spewing from their mouth. In New York, that 84% of the farmland, not all land, the farmland went to alternative ways for power. So either solar panels or windmills.
I would like to see some source documentation on that.
84% of farmland. But I mean, would you be surprised?
I know New York's got its own I'm sure they're all in on green energy in New York. But there is an awful lot people don't perceive. So those of you around the world listening mostly probably think New York is just a great big city with millions and millions of people in it. But the reality is that's like 3% of the land mass of New York. The rest of it is rural farming area. So we're not talking about a little bit of space. It takes 6 or 7 hours to drive from one end of New York to the other. And New York City and Long Island are just a tiny little piece. It's the bulk of the population, don't get me wrong. And obviously New York is an important city. It's the financial center of the universe for now. But it doesn't represent most of the land in New York. So I don't know the answer to that. Do you? What do you think?
I don't think it's that high, but I think it's high enough that it should raise concern.
Yeah, I now you'll really get us sidetracked, and I won't go on and on about this, but I just did a deep dive into wind turbines, and everybody has already admitted they are a failed project. Yet, the government, the United States government, is still subsidizing building more wind farms. They're net negative in carbon. So, if the big thing is carbon, based on everything you have to do to get that turbine operating, you're not making up anything there. They're highly inefficient. They're not cost effective, and they're very bad for the surrounding environment. They kill tens of thousands of birds, big birds, and they're talking about putting them. Well, we'll put them out in the water. Well, what's that going to do to the ecosystems in the ocean if we start building gigantic wind farms in the ocean? I think the handwriting is more than on the wall. This is an ethanol situation. We knew for 10 years. The government subsidized ethanol for 10 years after everybody knew for an absolute fact that ethanol was not going to happen. It was gone. Every publicly traded company had already gone out of business, and we subsidized it for another 10 years. That's where we are with wind today. There are alternative forms of energy. We're going to have a greener energy plan in this world going forward, but windmills aren't a part of it. Guess what? Here's your first clue. They were using those 1,000 years ago. So I don't think those are the upgrade to our current infrastructure. And that's all I have to say about that.
I think that power is definitely going to be an issue going forward.
Well, there's no doubt we're creating all these systems. We've got the entire cryptocurrency universe, and Bitcoin in specific. That takes a lot of power. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, and with the amount of renewable energy they're using, Bitcoin miners are being very responsible. But we're just getting geared up here on this high-performance computing thing. The amount of power that's going to take is astronomical. If we're truly going to try to have any effort to convert at least some percentage of the cars to EV in the United States, that's going to be a giant burden on the grid. Our grid can't handle any one of those three things. And I'll give you a proof that it can't. Here's Riot's income statement. In the month of August, let me find a way for it. In the month of August, in the quarter, this isn't even the number I want to show you. In the 3 months ended June 30th, they got paid $8 million to give energy to Texas's grid because they ran out of energy. But wait, that's not even the good one. Here's just July. $14 million Texas had to pay Riot so that they could borrow energy. So when people think Bitcoin miners are bad or negative, we're helping the grid, not hurting it. And the grid can't accommodate without, right? It's clear the state of Texas, based on the amount of curtailment all the Bitcoin miners have to do, the state of Texas, which, by the way, is essentially the energy center of the universe, can't even generate enough energy for people to turn the lights on without having to go buy some from Bitcoin miners. So to your point, George, energy grid, not so good.
Dude, what do they do with all this money?
That's why I think very quietly, Riot's a lot better company than people realize. I'm not saying they're the best Bitcoin miner, but I think they have their balance sheet is a fortress. Their income statement is good. They made a lot of money in this quarter. And even with taking $159 million write-off for the contracts that they were in when they bought this facility 4 or 5 years ago, even with that write-off, they still made a couple of $100 million last quarter. So Riot's financial statements were good as well. And, you get these power credits. Now, there's only a few months of the year. The summer months are when this happens. Sometimes it has happened that they get a freeze in Texas. And then in the winter months, all of a sudden, Riot starts getting big bucks. Riot was there first, and they've got the best deal. They get more of this money than all the rest of the other Bitcoin mining companies combined. The rest of the Bitcoin mining companies agreed to participate in curtailment as a part of the agreement to, be there at all. So this is a little bit of a unique situation. They're not the only ones that get any revenue, but they get the lion's share of it. But the point of all that was, yes, the grid in the United States is not what it needs to be. Pogo saying a Dyson sphere. We are a long, long way from being able to build a Dyson sphere. But they've talked about Dyson's clusters, and I don't want to get too science fiction for people here, but essentially it's harnessing the power of the sun. And, solar is very different than wind, whereas as I just got through saying wind is a failed experiment, solar is not. We will become more and more reliant on solar, but it does need to get more efficient because it takes up far too much land mass right now. But we see it's cheaper, and we see the path to success with solar energy. So I do think solar energy will be a gigantic part, and the further down you go, you may have to go out 50 years or 100 years before it plays out to where we want it to, but solar is very high on the list. And there's obviously no greater source of energy than the sun. What are you thinking?
I'm taking a class on building nuclear power plants.
Now, boom, you just tapped into another one. Nuclear power plants are so mind-bogglingly efficient that, we abandoned ship on them, and they're coming back around. So I think you're right. That's going to be a big part of the grid. It's so efficient. It's unbelievable. Everybody, but obviously there's the stigma. There have been a few incidents that were catastrophic. And so, they need to be built with care, in the right place, maintained the right way. Some of these things were built in places that were almost certainly destined to have a problem. So you got to pick the right spot, and you got to maintain it forever. But you want to talk about efficient and clean energy. That's the dream right there. So there's a lot of options for energy that can get added to the grid. But in the meantime, it's silly to pretend like, well, we'll just stop using oil, because still virtually fossil fuels represent virtually all of the energy that we use on this planet as a species. And it's going to take time to change that. Real time, 50 years, 100 years, 150 years.
Do you think that long?
I think we'll be still making progress along the way, yeah. Look, I can tell you this, the the solar panels that I used to put on people's roofs when we first started building down here in 1996, I'll bet you the technology is at least 100 times better than.
Oh, I would think it's even more than that.
Yeah. So we've made leaps and bounds of progress, but we're not done. We are not at the finish line for sure. Let's see what's going on with this poll. Are you bullish on the Bitcoin miners in the month of August? This is another pretty close poll. We're at 68 likes. For those of you who have not yet, or if you just joined us, if you could be so kind as to hit the like button or the thumbs up button. We're going for 100 likes. Let's get our 100 likes and have the market go wild. And Jacob, who is a member, is asking, which miners do you think are going to come on top at the end of the bull market? So should we replace the poll with some options? Should we do a round robin again? Because there's really only 8 that I think that are worth considering. So we can do a round robin, and then the top 2 in each bracket will have a playoff and see who wins.
0 chance. Thanks, Jay.
What?
Well, you got to give me more than a 0 chance. He's saying there's 0 chance Riot and Marathon hits all-time high in a year, like George said. 0 chance. If you believe that, I wouldn't be in this space.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to, at some point in time, I think a switch is going to get flipped. I personally still, but maybe it's just I'm completely optimistic. But I still think Bitcoin could double before the end of the year. And I think when Bitcoin doubles, I think these miners are totally different play.
Right.
Something like that has to happen.
If Bitcoin has a big run, or even if it can stay where it is, like I just looked at, even the inefficient miners are making about $60,000 per Bitcoin. That's more than a Bitcoin was worth at any other point in its history, other than for 1 or 2 days in November of 2021. So they are cash flowing big time. And it's only going to get better, in my opinion, because I do think we're partway through a much longer cycle. And that's not, my left field theory. There's an awful lot of talk about that, and there's an awful lot of supporting evidence that, there's a series of events that have occurred that change the trajectory of what's happening this time around. I'll tell you, and, I would take this with an absolute grain of salt, but I had a long conversation with ChatGPT, which I've been known to do lately, so it's a bad habit. But I went through and talked about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And I asked for an analysis and a price target and for all of its supporting reasons as to why it can, thinks Bitcoin's going to go to where it's going to go. And we went back and forth and it landed on Bitcoin getting to between $180,000 and $250,000 as the most likely case scenario by June of 2026. And a less likely scenario, it does see a potential for Bitcoin to run to $450,000 in this cycle.
Wow.
So
and I didn't even know this.
Yeah, that's.
So what do you want the poll to say? Which is the miner is the best?
Which miner has which mining stock is going to go up the most?
Okay.
Because some of these may not be the best companies. They just may be so undervalued that they're the best investment.
You want me to start with like IREN, Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot?
I think putting all 4 of those together is not fair because.
Okay, well then give me what you want.
I'll give you right now. Let's go. We can put Marathon and Riot in the same group.
Okay.
And then we'll put them with CIFR and Bitfarms.
Are we going to put Hive in the next one?
Yep.
William, I'm going to tell you something. I don't disagree with moving your money between from Bitcoin to Ethereum. The only reason I do disagree is because since I know what I like Bitcoin a lot. I like it a lot. But there is a lot of money in Ethereum right now that it's good chance it's going to go crazy. I'm sorry, the guy who invented it, he looks like a complete lunatic. And when you change your core principles on a product, it means you're grasping for straws. So I can't, that's the reason I don't like it.
They have a series of fundamental changes yet to come. And the first one was moving from proof of work to proof of stake. I think that reduced everything. Now, the other problem I have is, and I called it out at the time, Ethereum got down to $1,400. And I said on, I think, a members only stream, I'm not buying it here and I'm going to regret it. But I don't have conviction, so I can't do it. And it ran from $1,400. It's over $4,000 today. So it just had a massive, massive run. Now, I saw a couple of different companies calling for Ethereum to run to $15,000 or $16,000 by the middle of next year. So, if that's true, then even though you missed the 1,400 to 4,000 run, the 4,000 run to 16,000 runs not so bad. If there's that much upside, that's a beautiful thing. I just don't have the conviction in it. So I don't, I think it's more susceptible to volatility. Bitcoin is the one that is just so much more mature. Now, that cuts down some of your upside. You're not going to get a 10x on Bitcoin, in this cycle. You're not from this point. You're not going to get a 4x. You're not going to get a 10x. You're not going to get a 100x. But I think there's a higher level of certainty that you will get a lot more positive price action.
So you're saying that you don't think Bitcoin is going to go up 10% more this cycle?
No, 10x.
Oh, 10x. Okay.
Yes.
I disagree.
You think it could 10x?
I think there's a very strong case that it could 10x.
Well, listen,
there's a very good, I'm not talking this year, I'm talking this cycle. There's a very good use case that we could 10x Bitcoin. Absolutely. Bitcoin was always designed to go to $1 million. And that's when it gets interesting.
Well, I vote for that if this is a democracy.
I mean, it's not.
I think it's inevitable that Bitcoin goes to $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
I think to me, that's outside of the top side of what I'm comfortable predicting in this range. But you're right. You can't say it's impossible. There's a lot of people expecting it to do that in this cycle.
I told everybody that I bought BSV, and I'm always going to tell everybody, they'll probably pot us down right now. But I bought BSV as insurance just in case. I know. Here comes the hate.
Well, listen, you've spent a small amount of money on some altcoins that have a lot of potential. Those are big risk rewards, and that's the way you do it.
I took it for my XRP, and I watch it and I go, man, oh my, I lost so much money by moving that money over there. But it allows me to sleep at night. Somebody said something about Litecoin. I don't have any Litecoin, but it is a nice project. I'm starting to dabble on these coins that I think are going to 100x. That's my new little thing, guys. Right. I don't know if anybody's interested in stuff like that, but I'm thinking about starting to do another stream, Tom.
Yeah. On altcoins.
Yeah.
That could be a good thing.
There are some really cool projects out there.
And you got to get in. This is how I think you have to look at the altcoins. If you can find coins anywhere from $10 million market cap to even a $200 million market cap, those are candidates to 10x or 100x.
Yeah.
You know, once you're into $1 billion, I guess some of those could 10x, but you know, the bigger you get, the lower the likelihood. You're looking for that massive run that we get in altcoin season when some of these things go crazy. And we just had a mini bump in altcoins, by the way. XRP just went ballistic. Ethereum just went ballistic. Right? XRP was up 11% like yesterday or the day before. It ran.
Those are some nice days, guys. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, for you, that's so here, speaking of XRP bull flag points to $8.
Really?
Now, I'm gonna caveat that statement. I spent a half an hour on that chart trying to make a bull flag that pointed to $8. And no matter how much liberties I wanted to take with that flag, I couldn't get anywhere near $8. $5.50 is what I saw. And that's just, none of any of that means anything. Take it all with a grain of salt. But here's somebody, you know, say XRP smashes resistance barriers as trading volume hits 300 million during peak institutional buying surge with bull chart patterns and landmark legal resolution. So, George, we talked on Tuesday, is that case closed? And I said, yes, it was closed. But in reality, let me find it. Technically speaking, that case closed today. Oh, so although they had talked about the fact that it was done, from a technical standpoint, this SEC case, SEC's long-running case against Ripple, is officially over. And that's today. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission lawsuit against Ripple Labs is officially over after the two parties informed the Second Circuit Court of Appeals that they were voluntarily dismissing their respective appeals of a 2023 ruling in the case.
Oh, that's why it popped. What's the four miners? I put in CleanSpark, IREN, Hive. You want maybe Hut?
Ooh, Marathon dominated that. That is a big surprise to me. So yeah, let's get the other four. We got to do CleanSpark, IREN, BitDR, and Hive.
And what's the other one?
BitDR, BTDR, and Hive. So I will tell you, those are the 8 companies that I consider Bitcoin miners. I know we've had more than that on our list, but we've just seen such fundamental changes in the ones that were not included that they may be great companies, but they're high-performance computing companies now.
Could I sue the SEC right now over this whole thing with Ripple?
I don't think so. You know, could there be a class action lawsuit by Ripple holders that the SEC suppressed?
Screwed them?
Right. I mean, Ripple can't even get the court system. The SEC agreed to a lower fine. The Ripple and the SEC agreed on a fine, and the court told them no. If that tells you how that's going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Just remember, people, somebody on this channel told you to buy XRP at 33 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents.
Pounded the table for years.
You guys told me I was an idiot, screamed at me, laughed at me. And then when I lost my money and I was crying, you guys came and kicked me.
Kicked you when you were down, but
yeah.
He who laughs last.
It's funny. So I said this to somebody today. You're a complete and utter moron until you're right. And then you're an idiot. And then no one likes you. You know what I mean? Wait,
You're wrong until you're right. I mean, look, we know everybody, they made a movie about it, The Big Short. That guy was wrong. He was wrong. He was wrong until he was right. And then all of his customers got filthy rich beyond belief. So, but he had to be wrong for years. That's conviction. But it paid off. The reason I'm not including HUT is because essentially they've taken all of their Bitcoin mining facilities and
they're flipping them
in exchange for stock of their new company they started. They've given all the Bitcoin mining to that company. That company's merging with Griffin. It's going to go public as like American Bitcoin or something like that. And the only thing Hut 8 will have to do with it at that point is they're going to be hosting all of those machines. I believe when that transaction's done, Hut will never mine another Bitcoin, and they may already not be mining any Bitcoin. They put out their quarterly, their 10Q, and they didn't even mention how many Bitcoin they mined at all. So I have a feeling they're while they're in the energy business, which is adjacent to Bitcoin mining via hosting, they're just not a Bitcoin miner anymore. Now, they do have a big HODL stack. They still have 10,667 Bitcoin, I believe is the number they reported. So, you know, that's still one of the big stacks.
Yeah, Gary, you're right. He had to close out his position on Tesla.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That person, I feel like, and that's a good comment, Gary, because I feel like that was a gloom and doom person, because all of his calls have been gloom and doom. But it only took one. I don't think he lost all the money he gained on that one time being right. But you're right. He's a perma short, and it worked out in that one instance.
Well, but I think he became a target too. Does that make sense?
That's probably true.
Because when you take money, because he took the money from the hedge funds, that's what he did. And when you do that, they put you on. Look at, what is it, Archangel Capital? I mean, they took $4 billion almost overnight from those guys.
That's right.
I mean, literally overnight. And every single one of their positions was right a month later. You tell me that wasn't, you know what I mean?
That was coordinated, allegedly. And DEFCON saying, you mean ABTC? I think that's going to be the ticker for the new Hut 8
Do you
subsidiary.
think that will bring a lot of eyes into the space, Tom?
ABTC?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a part of a bunch of things that brings the attention back to Bitcoin miners. Yes. I mean, it's the company that Eric Trump is heavily involved in. He may be the president or the CEO. I don't know. You know, they're the minority interest holders. Hut 8 is the, I think, 80% interest holder, and now they're going to take the whole thing public. So, you know, everybody will get their chance to own some.
Here's an article about it 3 weeks ago. ABTC stock is quietly exploding. Here's what's coming next.
All right. Do we need to add it to the list?
When will they start trading? When are they going?
I don't know. Whenever that deal closes with Griffin, they're basically doing a reverse merger to go public through Griffin, which, you know, is now nothing.
So do you think that this is what Trump is waiting for before he announces the strategic reserve?
I don't know that that's specifically what he's waiting for. I think that we're getting a steady flow from this administration of positive news. And I'll go through a couple that were this week. But yes, I think, that catalyst cannot be undersold. When the United States buys Bitcoin to put in a strategic reserve, that is going to give Bitcoin credibility on a level that no other single act can do. And there have been a lot of gigantic acts of adoption. The ETFs that finally came to fruition was the monster. That, to me, when that happened, that was the biggest news in the history of Bitcoin. And it launched it to another level. And once the U.S. is buying money and putting it in that strategic, there's other countries already doing it. They're very small countries. When the larger economies start doing that, and it becomes in the same vein as gold, that's when I think you're going to see things get really, really crazy. And there's an awful lot of people, and I'm one of them, that thinks Bitcoin will catch gold in market cap. And essentially right now, it would have to do what George talked about and get a little over $1 million to do that. So I just don't know. Can't tell you when that's going to be.
There's a chance that could, that is not out of the play for this, cycle. I'm sorry. It's just because there's just too much. I honestly still believe and I think everybody, well, a lot of people do, believe the price is being suppressed because there's such a big float at these, like Coinbase. There's no way they're allocating it to their freaking wallets. They got a float, and they're playing the float game. It's becoming like gold.
Well, I think you can say that Robinhood is doing that because they're not even pretending. Yeah. Like you can't trade your coins out of Robinhood to somewhere else. You got to convert it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Last I knew, that's how it worked in Robinhood. It was not your coins. And then they even, I think, invented like a Robinhood wallet, but that's just a further smokescreen.
Just so you guys know, this means I believe Hive is going to win because Hive was like one of the lowest.
Okay, so they don't even get to be in the finals.
No.
And that's a shame. And I understand why people aren't picking them because, you're prone to pick the company that you think's the best company. But Hive, let's just take a quick peek before we do the final poll.
I can't believe Bitfarm has to go up here.
Oh, wow. Well, see, there you go. Hive Digital Technology. This is August 7th. So let's go back in time for a minute. In May, Hive put out this. Hive's future hash rate growth. They said they were at 11 exahash, and that was a giant improvement because they were at 6 exahash at the beginning of the year. So they were already at 11. They said they were going to get to 25. That looks like a long road, hard to believe. Well, then they put out a press release that they're now at 12 exahash. Then they put out a press release that they're now at 13 exahash. Then they put out a press release they're now at 14 exahash. And now, yesterday, they put out a press release. They're now at 15 exahash. So guess what? They are now a company that's doing what they said they were going to do. This is they now have a proven track record of doing what they said that they were going to do. And they're now mining twice as many Bitcoin a month today as they were at the beginning of the year. They have moved way up the list. These guys are now a significant. Are they the biggest? No, they're not cracking the top 3. But they put themselves into the category, in my mind, of the 6 or 7 Bitcoin miners that have made the commitment to withstand the long term. And when their financials come out, you'll see their overhead's very low. And old Jock was pointing out tariff-free Hive feasting on Paraguay's excess electricity and expanding rapidly. So I think that's right on. I think Hive is going to have a big, big run. That's the one That's the company I think that's most likely to 10x out of all of these companies. But it's not even in our finals. We got, wow.
That's why I said that.
These results are surprising me. I'll be honest. We're at 91 likes, everybody. If you just got here, or if you haven't smashed the like button or the thumbs up button, if you could do us a favor, we're shooting for 100. We're going for 100. That's our goal. Let's get to some more of these charts because we got a lot of information to get to. Let's go back. So just to review, if you weren't here earlier, we looked at this earlier in the stream. This is what the Bitcoin miners did this week. Bitcoin was up 3%. So I will tell you, to me, this week felt like a bad week. It just, the way it played out, it just didn't feel like a good week. But actually, if you look at this chart, this was a decent week. I mean, even the ones that underperformed, and a bunch of them did, it's not like they got wiped out. There was no catastrophes here. You know, Riot was up 0. Bitcoin was up 3. Yes, that's lagging behind. Marathon down 1%. Hut down 2. CIFR down 4. Cleanspark down 4 on what I think was all good news. I think this was a giant fake out, and I put my money where my mouth was today, and I bought more of that than I really even maybe, I won't say should have, but more than I ever expected, because it got under $10 and I was like, you have to be absolutely kidding me. So I bought twice I bought CleanSpark this week in the 10.50 something range and then under $10. So I think they're giving it away. If I'm wrong, then I'm going to be wrong, because at this point now, CleanSpark is my biggest position. And the good news is I'm up gigantic on this position, because and that's why I have a hard time buying it. You know, my dollar cost average was in the 4s at one point. So it's hard, even when it pulls back to 10, even though they're giving it away, it is hard to buy when your cost basis is so much less than that. But I just think there's so much upside to this stock. That's my opinion. You know, everybody's got a different opinion, not financial advice. And my opinion is not shared, because CleanSpark is in last place on this current poll. So if you haven't voted, we're voting. This is the finals round. These are the 4 companies that got the most votes. So they're running off, and we actually have a tie going on right now. This is razor thin. So put in your vote if you're on a device where you're able to vote. Which Bitcoin miner is going to have the best return? Finalists are Bitfarms, Marathon, IREN, and CleanSpark. And we did not pick these. These are the ones that got the most votes along the way. And yeah, you know what? Some of these might not hit their all-time highs. Marathon's all-time high, I think, was 83. So I'm not 100% sure it's going to hit its all-time high. As one of my big positions, I'm highly confident that it's very undervalued. Bitfarms, especially Bitfarms, is so far away from its all-time high. I'm going to double check, but I think it was $9.36. So we looked at this. To me, this 276 is the short-term goal I'm looking at. This is where Bitfarms just was. That's 121% upside to get back to where they were in November of 2024, when Bitcoin was a lot lower and Bitfarms was not as good a company as they are today, in my opinion. But you got to go, not yet, $9.36. You got to go back to November of 2021. I will agree. You know what? I mean, that's pretty tough to imagine from here. That's a 665% increase in their stock. But you know what? When these things run, I mean, look, in the last bull market, this went from 50 cents to $9.36. So that's all we're asking it to do again, right? Because it bounced off of 68 cents twice. So can it do the same thing over? That seems hard for me to believe. But I think some of these other lines, $2.76, $3.91, I think that's a really realistic price target. And that's gigantic upside from here, right? That's much more than a triple. So I think a lot of these are a good buy.
Wow, look at that marathon IREN. I don't think IREN, just so you know, I don't think IREN will be the best from here.
Yeah, this list that is being made is definitely not the list I would have predicted. It's not what I expected. Unfortunately, some of the ones that I think are going to go up the most didn't even make the finals. I do think Hive has the best chance of having the most upside out of any of these. And I'm looking at market caps because some of these have already run up to, IREN, for instance, is already 10 times the market cap of Hive.
Right.
So it's hard to run from there. And I think there's a lot of upside left in IREN. I think they will run. I just, once you're over $4 billion market cap, it's hard to 5x from there. But there's room for that. It all depends on what the market does because, when Bitfarms was valued at $3.91, the Bitcoin economics were nowhere near as good as they are today. And they had almost, their hash rate was 20% of what it is today. And, the Bitcoin mining was, the economics on it was nowhere near as good as it is today. Which, let me find an article because
I think Marathon and CleanSpark will become hot stocks again. And that's what needs to happen. And that's what happened before.
You're right. That's right. And Marathon, Riot was the first breakout in this sector. Riot actually hit its all-time high in like February or March of 2021. And then it ran back up to like 46 or something like that in November, which was, so I'm using that November number in my head, but Riot ran first. But then Marathon ran. And when Marathon ran, they went crazy. They got to, I think, 83, but we can just check because we're right here. So let's go to Marathon. And so again, short-term target of 30 to me seems like a walk in the park. But you got to go. Look at what this thing to $83.45. And that is from September 30th. So basically October, this is in 40, maybe 42 days. This stock went up 167%.
So you got hot.
Right. And that's all that has to happen. And I think that will happen. That's FOMO. We can't even see FOMO with our binoculars, with our telescope from here. That's how far away we are from that part of the cycle. And I think it is ultimately coming. So that's why I do think there's so much upside left to these. But there's a lot of long, painful days, weeks, and months in the middle where you ask yourself, what am I doing in this space? And yeah, maybe you could go trade something else and try and come in and catch the run. But if you miss it, then you miss it.
Well, that's kind of why I don't really trade XRP or Bitcoin, is because I'm not rich enough to miss it. You see what I mean? It could just leave. It could just take off.
Right.
And I can't afford that.
And Larry's saying, Tom, I was selling Mara at 75 and buying it back at 62 all in the same 30 minutes. So that's how, thank you, Larry, for that comment. That's how crazy things were at that time. And we've seen runs like that. Here, you don't have to go back in time. Look at IREN. Right? This is April. This is July. 318% run IREN just took. And with that 318% run up, everybody still voted it has the most upside out of any stock. That's how violently these can run. So I do think there's big upside ahead. But that's just my opinion. Let's look at, I want to show you one more thing. More than one more, but I want to look at year to date. So this is what the Bitcoin miners did this week. You know, some of them had phenomenal weeks. Some of them had not very good weeks. Nobody had a disaster week. But if you go year to date, I mean, look at what's happening year to date. IREN has just run away from the field. They're doing almost exactly 10 times better than the next closest Bitcoin miner. They're up 88% year to date. CleanSpark and Riot are up 9%. They are tied for second. 10 times that would be 90%. They're up 88%. I mean, they're basically outperforming by 10 times the next closest Bitcoin miner. And half of these Bitcoin miners are still in the red. So to me, this is why I look at Hive still down 27% year to date. BitDeer's down 42% year to date. You know, these may have some, and Bitfarms, which has had a vicious run up lately, is still down 17% year to date. So there's a lot of room for these stocks. I think this model here, you know, IREN went first. That's what happened. But I think the rest will follow, and I think IREN will continue. I mean, you guys are voting that IREN still has the most upside out of any of these. So imagine, you know, where these things can go.
So here's what I think is going to happen. As long as Bitcoin doesn't really move, if Bitcoin moves, everything changes. But I think money's going to kind of move out of IREN into the other ones, personally.
That could happen. But if let me go to the IREN chart. So IREN, like, to me, and this is, we talked on Tuesday, I said, I think we've had a nice reset and IREN could have a run because the daily RSI kind of bounced off of 50. And in a bull market, that can be a reset. And you'll see we had a bearish crossover weeks ago. We are maybe one day away from a bullish crossover on the daily MACD. So I do think what you said is going to happen, George, but I think it's going to run back up. This is what I think is going to happen. And obviously, I'm guessing, like we all are. I think it's going to run back up, take out this high that it had that day. So that's a 16% run up. I think you could see, you know, if it got to 24, that would be about a 30% run up. I think it could do that. And then I think you're going to see people rotate out of this and this thing have a real correction. Even that'll only be short term and it'll be a buying opportunity. But, you know, if it gets up into this territory, I at least have to buy some puts, if not sell my IREN if it gets to 24 in the short term here. And again, it looks like to me, the reason I think that is because, you know, we're one day away from a bullish crossover potentially. So we got lots of room here, and, you know, we've already turned around here, and we're still under 70, and this thing can get, we've seen it get up to 87 on the daily RSI. So there's a lot of room for another big push to the upside. And I think that could happen. And then I think what you said is going to happen. You'll start to see some, it's going to be the next person's turn. I think you're talking about CleanSpark and Marathon. Is that what you're thinking, George?
I'm not 100% on that, but I think, no, I said they're going to get hot. I still think Hive is going to be the guy. I still think, and now you guys just kind of proved it to me I was right by telling it's like the lowest voted out of all of them.
Right. But I do think CleanSpark and Marathon are next. I think they're going to get the next turn. But I think there's a bunch of other ones that will get a turn. And when Hive goes, it's going to be forget about it, because it's so undervalued that, like, if I go to Hive, it got below. To put things in perspective, this is how undervalued. This is a company that's now at 15 exahash. They mined over 200 Bitcoin this month. They took out their all-time low from the end of the crypto winter in December of 2022. They got below that. That's how low, when everyone else was up 300, 400, 500, 600, 700%. Hive was actually below their all-time low. That's how far behind this stock has lagged. They're still only, right now, only 50% off of their all-time low. And if I go to the chart, you're going to see this is why George is saying what he's saying. This is a chart from the cycle low, which was what we just looked at in November. There was a double bottom in November for Bitcoin, November and December. And for the Bitcoin miners, December of 2022, they all hit the absolute bottom. CleanSpark's up 479% since then. IREN's up 1,709% since then. Even Bitfarms, which everybody thinks is the biggest pile of garbage ever, is up 228%. Hive's up 52%. Hive has to 4x from here just to not be in last place anymore. That's how much upside I see in Hive.
That's the reason I say that with 4-year cycle is I've been fooled so many times on these guys. And once you try to back a horse, you get screwed. You can't back a horse in this race right now. You got to work it hard and then put it away injured into the stall and get to the next one. And I think that's what they're doing. They're picking their horse and they're running it, and they're picking their horse and they're running it with the end game of knowing that Mara and CleanSpark win, by the way. So what I think is going to happen, they're going to, at some point in time, they're going to run away, and we're never going to see prices like this again until they dilute.
Right. There will be another round of dilution, but I can see what's coming. And for anybody who might be listening that has influence over this, this is my, not financial advice. This is what I would do if I owned a Bitcoin mining company right now. I would spend the next year and a half creating energy infrastructure. I wouldn't buy any more Bitcoin miners. I would build out enough energy infrastructure to double my exahash and wait, because the Bitcoin mining machines that are going to be selling a year and a half or 2 years from now look like they're going to be so significantly more energy efficient that I wouldn't bother building out the rest of this round. We're already at energy efficiency numbers that are staggering. CleanSpark's at 16 joules per terahash as a fleet. IREN's at 15 joules per terahash. I mean, the overall fleet used to be over 100 joules per terahash. So we've already cut this into a small fraction, but it looks like there's a chance they could cut it in half again. And, in the next cycle, you're going to want your fleet to be at 8 or 9 joules per terahash. So build out the infrastructure. Then when the machines come, when the right machine arrives right before the next halving, you buy the bigger, better machines. So that's how I would play this if I was a Bitcoin mining company. That is what I believe IREN did. They got themselves up to 50 exahash at light speed, and then they stopped. And now what are they doing? They're just building out high-performance computing infrastructure. And by the way, that infrastructure can lead to future, there's modifications necessary, but that could lead to future exahash as well. The point is they're focusing on building out, I think 2.6 gigawatts of infrastructure. So that's what I would do if I was where I'm at. If I was a CleanSpark or an IREN who already seems to be doing that, or a Marathon who really needs to do that because they're not even totally vertically integrated yet. They still have a lot of their machines hosted by other people. So they're already way behind CleanSpark and IREN in that regard, even though they're bigger companies.
I'm having a problem. I can't get shirts big enough.
Even the triple extra large are not working?
Oh my goodness. Nope.
In the good way, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm happy.
That's awesome.
I had to take over for Hulkamania. I had to get my arms as big as his.
Oh, yeah. The Hulk. Rest in peace.
Hulkamania coming along. Hey, Metro.
If you guys remember, Marathon was the asset light company. They, in the last cycle, their business model was, we're not going to waste our money on infrastructure. We're going to buy Bitcoin mining machines. Well, they did a 180 degree on that one because, as it turned out, the Bitcoin mining machines, and there was a reason they did that. That wasn't stupidity. At that point, in late 2020 and all of 2021, you couldn't get your hands on a Bitcoin mining machine. You had to pay a 50 or 100% deposit for them to offer delivery 6 to 12 months later. That's where this was at. We're at a very different place than that now. All of a sudden, the Bitcoin mining machines have become a commodity, and it's the energy part, infrastructure part of this that is the most important piece of the Bitcoin mining puzzle. So they had to switch gears and do a 180 degree turnaround, and they're not done yet. So the companies that built themselves out after that had already happened had the advantage of already being in that world and knowing that was the right way to go.
I just have to say something. Remember when I was telling you we were thinking about putting money into Compass Mining?
Yes.
Just pulled it up just for shits and giggles.
Uh-huh.
They have a 2.7 star on Trustpilot. And the last review was a 1 star.
1 star.
Yeah, they promised a 95% uptime. They're nowhere near that. I'm lucky if I get a response in 12 hours.
We talked to them at the mining conference, and neither one of us walked away from that feeling good.
3 days. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing. We deeply regret. Bullshit. Here's another one, a 1 star. And here's a 5 star. So let's put it this way. The majority of the stars are 1, followed by, no, the majority of the stars are 5, followed by the second majority is a 1 star.
So it's you're either good or you're bad.
Yeah, yeah. So those are usually fake ones.
Yeah, that's right.
A year late. Can you imagine giving, and we're talking like $100,000, $200,000. My first rig was a year late.
Yeah, that's madness.
And then one broke and it took 10 months to fix.
That's brutal.
This is crazy.
That's why these big publicly traded companies that are scaling up have such an advantage. It's not worth, you can't compete with them. You're not going to get the energy deals they get because they're getting them at scale. And you can't buy the amount of machines at the price they get because they're doing that at scale as well. So, like, this is the future. And I think just to show you.
Okay. Sophie, I invested $425,000 in mining equipment that was supposed to mine for 4 years. Instead, they have been relocated between facilities. I have not for 1 day mined with these equipment, as they keep telling me when we are settled, they will turn it off. They left me with no month-to-month actual mining. I've been waiting 6 months plus for the company to bring them online. Now this just goes on, and oh my God. See, I told you, you bitches. I knew it. I knew it. Bitches.
See, it's the moves you don't make that are just as important as the moves that you do make.
You remember I was like, no, Tom, I'm going to do this. I'm going to. Wow.
You dodged a bullet on that one. Yeah. Big time.
Oh my goodness.
If it seems too good to be true.
The company is a total fraud. Do not buy, invest. I might lose everything.
These are reviews.
Wow. Sorry. It's nice to, know you get a gut feeling and it was right.
Just wanted to show everybody this. If you got more, George, or
no, go ahead. Yeah, please.
So this is the summary list. You'll see most of the people. So far, BitDR has not put out their, as of 4 o'clock today, they had not put out their monthly operational report yet. There's only 8 companies putting out operational report. I think actually 7 companies. Core Scientific is posting daily how much Bitcoin they mine, but they're not giving us a monthly update. So I've actually taken Core Scientific and Canon, and you can see I've moved them below the line here. And the reason for that is Core Scientific's not reporting anymore. And their monthly, from X or Twitter, you're seeing their monthly mining go down month after month. Remember, this is a company that was in first place by a mile 3 years ago. And now they're in a distant 8th place. And that doesn't even count the fact that Bitfarms isn't reporting, and Bitfarms is almost certainly mining more than Core Scientific right now. So they're probably went from the largest miner to the 9th largest miner during this last cycle. So, and I think they're about to turn all the machines off. And then Canaan, 89 Bitcoin. They're just insignificant. They're not positioning themselves to be a player in this game. And this is why I say, like, Hive went from 102 Bitcoin in April to 203 Bitcoin in July. And that wasn't a fluke. They doubled their exahash. Look, up 36%, 18%, 24%. They're now at 15 exahash. And in April, they were at 7. So this is somebody who's in the game. This is somebody who wants to win and be a part of the next Bitcoin cycle. Look at BitDR. I'm sorry, CIFR. This one really took me by surprise. CIFR added 3.6 exahash. Both Hive and CIFR added 3.6 exahash in the month of July. So look what that resulted in. A 24% increase month over month in mining for Hive, a 34% increase month over month mining for CIFR. So, and by the way, IREN had a 17% increase month over month. There was nobody that had a bad month. You can't count down 1% as a bad month. I know, especially with the heat. I mean, these numbers were totally understandable. And Riot is up 8% month over month, and that doesn't count the $14 million of energy credits they got. So they had a spectacular month. So I think we're down to these 7 companies that are Bitcoin mining companies that are going to give us reliable information on a monthly basis, and their core focus of their business. Not their only, they can have other revenue streams, but the core focus of their business is Bitcoin mining. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with me and you think there's one that should be in there that's not in there. But I think we're down to 7. If Bitfarms started reporting again, and here's the other thing, the American Bitcoin mining, when that all gets straightened out, the evolution of whatever HUT was, we might need to add that to our list and get back up to 8. But for right now, they're in limbo. And if Bitfarms starts reporting again, they'll go back on the list because they were at 20 exahash. I have no reason to believe they've stopped their Bitcoin mining, and we're going to find out next week when we get their financial statements.
Well, I can tell you what, if people hate Trump, they should definitely invest in Bitcoin miners right now. Because there's no way he's not going to make money. You know what I mean? There's just no way.
I'll go back to the article we read a few weeks ago. The old saying used to be, don't bet against the Fed. And the new saying is, don't bet against the president.
Yeah.
He's pretty much, from a policy standpoint and from a personal investment standpoint, pretty much all in on cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, but cryptocurrency in general. We did have some news. Michigan's state pension boosts its Bitcoin ETF stake. So this is just going to adoption that I'm trying to explain. People don't realize just how much money is out there and how many different pools of billion-dollar pools of money, trillion-dollar pools of money. So this is just the state of Michigan's pension fund. They're in for $11 million worth of the ARK Bitcoin ETF. So effectively, that's buying Bitcoin because ARK has to go out and buy the Bitcoin that supports those shares. So this is just one state's pension fund, right? There's multiple funds per state. There's 50 states. That doesn't include the federal government. And by the way, there's another 170 countries around the world that are adopting over time. So the road ahead, to me, is a lot longer than the road behind. We're just getting going. Every single stream, we have evidence of new adoption. Find another one.
There's a shooting going on right now in Atlanta.
Uh-oh.
At a college.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Pray for everybody. No, Michael J. Fox didn't die, did he?
I'm not aware of that. But if he did, let me know.
No, he didn't. Somebody just wrote that, rest in peace, Michael J. Fox.
That's not right. So we got Donald Trump signs executive, I'm inserting the word executive because it was an executive order, letting crypto into 401k retirement plans. This was yesterday. So this has been on the table. We've been talking about it. It's been coming. And now the executive order is signed. 401k retirement plans are now allowed to buy cryptocurrency. So that's a massive shift right there. Each one of these things on their own is just massive, massive catalysts. Wall Street is buying crypto quietly, and that's bullish, says BitMine's Tom Lee. So a lot of you may have seen Tom Lee on TV. He's on there all the time. So this is what I'm saying. Retail is gone. It's Wall Street that's been buying behind the scenes and building their stacks. And when the time is right, they will create the FOMO. Tom Lee, by the way, is the same person who has a huge company he's a major investor in that is buying Ethereum. In addition to that, he has an Ethereum price target for this cycle of 15. This is him right here. He has an Ethereum price target of $15,000 for this cycle. So if that happens, congratulations to everybody holding Ethereum because you're going to have a good run.
I gotta go.
Huh?
I gotta get out of here. I got a 45-minute drive. I gotta go to dinner with some people.
I lost track of time as well. We'll just take a look at Bitcoin, which is that.
What's his name? BitBoy? You guys know him as BitBoy? I'm hunting BitBoy down.
We're just under $117,000 right now for Bitcoin as we end the stream. We did get to 110 likes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, for smashing the like button. Special thanks to the members and super special thanks to the super chats. And look how close this was, George. This is crazy.
It's the three-way tie, and Hyde's still going to beat you. I'll see you.
I'm going to save this poll. That is a three-way tie. I know this is 1% off, but I'm calling it a three-way tie for first place. And so we'll see. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you guys have a really great weekend. To the members, I will see you on the Tuesday only live stream. Go Bitcoin.